It's March 23rd, 2019 in Melbourne, Australia. And we're going to be looking at what we can learn about raising children from the Bhagavad Gita, which may surprise some of you, as you may not think of the Bhagavad Gita as a book on parenting. But although you could say the Bhagavad Gita is a book really on how to spiritualize your career, how Arjuna could spiritualize his career, it really gives instruction for all of life. So we're going to be looking at three main areas. First of all, how to teach your children the real sources of happiness, how to teach them holistically, and then how to engage their nature in a way that will be satisfying for them and can be used in Krishna's service. And I really believe that that is the most important topic that we can look at. I noticed talking to some families here and recently in Malaysia that many times the children will become involved in Krishna consciousness and they're enthusiastic, and then they hit like 12, 13, 14 years of age and they kind of drop off. Yes, is this accurate? That I've been hearing this? So I believe that a lot of this, thank you, sir. So I believe that a lot of this problem stems from not engaging people according to their nature. Okay, so the sources of happiness, we talked a little bit this morning in the Bhagavatam class about how people are being inculcated and indoctrinated and groomed and pushed to think that we'll be happy in life. And any of you who are here this morning, so what's basically the propaganda, how you will be happy in life? Earn more money. Okay, what was the first one, you remember? Be a what? Be what kind of a person? Moral. Be a moral, honest person. And how are you going to earn money? Make plans and work hard. And then if you have a lot of money, you'll be able to enjoy your senses, you'll get a beautiful romantic partner and a happy family. And what about liberation? Don't worry about it. When you die, you're dead. So this is the way that we've been trained in materialistic society. Isn't that a fact? Now, we should say, this is not a politically correct thing to say, but if you're raising your children going to the regular schools and watching the regular media, this is also the message that they're going to be getting over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Be a good moral person. Do you need God to be a moral person? No, they say you don't need God. I mean, if you want to have him, that's okay, you know, we'll tolerate it. But it's not necessary, and just make good plans, work hard, make a lot of money. If you have a lot of money, you can have a beautiful house, beautiful car, beautiful husband, beautiful wife, intelligent children, good food, which you'll then be happy, and that's it. That's all there is. And if you're interested in liberation, just, you know, get liberated from communism or liberated from class or gender problems, right? That's the only kind of liberation that's being offered. So do keep in mind that if your children are being in that environment, they're going to be constantly bombarded with that message. You're going to be going against the grain. So, by the way, I'm going to talk about nature last because you weren't here, so I thought I'd put that at the end because I wanted to make sure you were here for that. So if you're wondering, why am I here? I'm going to talk about the last thing instead of the first. So if we're giving a different message about happiness, and just think about this a little bit. So who's more expert at giving their message? Krishna is the most expert, indeed. But who's more expert in their external presentation? The materialists have really got it together, isn't it? With their computer games and their movies and TV shows and their books and their schools. And it will appear to our children that we're this teeny tiny minority who are saying something odd. And do remember that the modern society is saying, yeah, you can worship God if you want to be moral, but that's an antiquated, primitive way of being. And the only use of worshiping God is to make you a moral person because you're afraid of going to hell and you want to go to heaven. And religion is going to be presented to your children in a very pejorative way. Religion is being presented in the modern schools, modern media, in a very negative way. So any of you who watch movies and TV, if you think about when's the last time a really heroic, cool person in the movies or TV shows has been genuinely religious and been set in modern times? You're really going to have a hard time thinking of any kind of character like that. So maybe if it's a show about, 100 years ago or 200 years ago, they might show someone as being very religious. But anything set in modern times, someone who's really cool, really heroic, how many of them are religious? How many times in TV, movies, do you see people praying? Right? And in the children's books, God is just absent. Now, we're going to look at three kinds of happiness, three ways of finding happiness given in the Bhagavad Gita. And you'll find that these are not generally the ways that are being propounded in modern society. The first is through sacrifice. Now, sacrifice here, when we use the word yajna in the Bhagavad Gita, it does not mean giving up something you like for a higher cause. It's not like the dictionary definition in English of the word sacrifice. What it means is religious rituals. I'm using the word rituals because I just don't know of a better word to use. Some sort of ceremony, we could say. Some kind of regular way that you connect with God that has some sort of structure to it. Again, rituals is a very negative term. But doing something on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on some sort of a cyclical basis, where you're connecting with Krishna, where you're connecting with the divine. And Krishna explains in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, he says, in the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generation of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, be thou happy by this yajna sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation. So here Krishna is giving the key how to be happy materially and to get liberation. If you want to be happy on every level, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, if you want to be a moral person, if you want to have prosperity, if you want to enjoy your senses, and if ultimately you want to be enlightened and get free of the material world, one needs to connect regularly with the divine, regularly with God, in some sort of authorized way as given in the scriptures. Not just I'm just going to connect with God. I'm just doing my own concocted way of connected with God. Just like if you want to connect with me, you need my proper email address, right? It was terrible when I was booking an airline ticket a month ago. I accidentally typed, instead of .com, I typed .con. And then, why isn't the receipt going to my email? I typed in the wrong letter, and I'd call the airline, and it was a big problem. And I had to call them like 5 times. Oh, it's fixed now, and then it wasn't fixed, and it wasn't fixed from one letter wrong. So if you don't do things according to the Shastra, you may not actually connect. So why does it make us happy? Krishna is saying here that if we do regular yajna, we will become happy, both materially and spiritually. Now, by the way, this yajna should not be done mechanically. Although it appears to be a ritual, we should not engage our children in it ritualistically. Okay? Just like my father used to call me every Saturday. Every Saturday morning he would call me. Talk to me, talk to my husband, talk to the kids. But it wasn't mechanical. He was calling because he loved me, and I talked to him because I loved him. It wasn't like, oh, okay, I have this ritualistic obligation to speak to my father. So we want to train our children in regular practice of connecting with Krishna, but not ritualistically. Not, okay, it's our puja time, okay, we got to be in here and do our puja, and we got to do our japa, and we got to read the books, and we have to do this because this is our culture, and this is our religion, and this is what it's supposed to be. That's not very satisfying, is it? And we need to understand, if we're going to engage our children in regular connection with the divine, why does that make us happy? Anyone have some idea as to why that will bring us happiness? Yes?
I'd have to say it's making a commitment with your deeper self and honoring it.
Very nice. And actually, it really is your deeper self, because the self of the self is God. He's called the Param Atma, the super self. So it's making a commitment to your ultimate self, the soul, to connect with its source. Yes. Excellent. I really like that. Yes?
Krishna is Satchidanand, means he is a source of happiness, and you connect, so obviously we can.
That's also, what a wonderful, beautiful answer. Krishna is the source of all happiness. When you connect with him, you feel it. In fact, all material happiness is coming from him, isn't it? He says he's the taste of water, the light of the sun, right? Everything. He's adventure. Everything that we feel happiness from is actually Krishna. So generally, we connect just with his energy, separate from him. But if we connect directly with him, then we get the full scope of happiness. Some other reasons why regular connection with the divine will bring your children happiness. Some other thoughts? Yes?
Just makes them feel that you're a part of it.
Oh, yeah, makes you feel that you're a part of it. And all of us want to be a part of something greater than ourselves. Everybody wants that. Even if it's just your family. You know, everybody wants to feel that I have some meaning and some connection other than just, you know, living day to day. Yes? Some other thoughts?
It is different than material happiness.
It's very different from material happiness, but it also brings material happiness indeed. And why is it different from material happiness?
Because it's temporary. Material happiness is temporary.
Okay, it's eternal. Material happiness is temporary. I might not feel that right away, though. What could I experience right away in regular connection with Krishna?
Peace of mind.
Peace of mind, all right? It makes one peaceful. It makes one equipoised. Most of our distress, or maybe all of our distress, comes because internally we're not equipoised. It's also genuine. It's on the platform of the soul. So how are we going to teach our children that happiness comes from regular connection with Krishna? Well, first of all, they need to do that. We need to make that a part of our life. Just like I'm sure all of you make sure your children brush their teeth and bathe and wear clean clothes and do their homework. You make sure they do that. Correct? Yes? You know, go, well, if you want to brush your teeth, it's okay. If you don't want to brush your teeth, that's cool too. I hope you don't do that. You want to go to school? Okay. You don't want to go to school? Well, fine. Whatever you want. No, you make sure that they're getting an education. You make sure they're cleaning their teeth. You make sure they're brushing their hair. Correct? So in the same way, you want to make sure there's regular connection with Krishna, but not mechanically. Not ritualistically. And you want to ensure that you and your children are actually experience that source of happiness from connection. Okay, another thing that Krishna emphasizes is that real happiness comes from within, from being self-satisfied, and not from having a lot of external stuff. Now, it is true that sometimes having some nice external stuff is helpful. It's certainly true. It's nicer to have good food than bad food. You'd rather have a phone with a long battery life than a phone with a short battery life. It's nice to have a car that starts when you turn the key. You know, I mean, it's true. It's nice to have shoes that don't have holes in them. I mean, you know, it's a fact. It's not that those things don't have any effect on us whatsoever. But if we're not peaceful inside, you can have the best shoes and the best phone and the best food, and the best friends, and it doesn't matter. Isn't that correct? I'm sure we've all, unfortunately, I'm sure we've all experienced that we've been very disturbed in our mind about something, and it can be anything. It can be something that 2 hours later seems completely insignificant, or a week later you can't even remember what you were upset about, correct? And in that mood, nothing brings you any happiness. When there's something that's bothering us, that's upsetting us, that's worrying us, when our equilibrium is off, we can have good food and we can have our loving family and our best friends and it's a sunny day and we're not sick and we have enough money in the bank and our shoes don't have holes in it and our phone battery lasts all day and we're still not happy. Am I correct? We all have this experience. Yes? And we have the reverse experience. You know, sometimes everything's going wrong. But we're peaceful within and it just doesn't really matter so much. You know, your car doesn't start and you think, okay, well, I get a day off from work. Jai, Haribo. You know, we have this kind of experience also, that we just say, okay, we're just going to go with it, whatever. We're lost. Well, we're having an adventure. My shoe just broke. Oh, I get to connect with the earth. Okay, fine. That just happened to me in Mayapur, actually. So we have that experience also. We have the experience that, you know, things don't go the way that we want. There's some difficulty, big difficulty, little difficulty, but if we're equipoised within, we're happy. So this is one of the most important things we can teach our children. Now keep in mind that society is screaming at them, it's all what you own, what your status is, what your, you know, and why is society screaming this at them? Because that's the way people sell things. Do keep in mind that all the TV shows are just props for the commercials. You know that, right? They're just to keep you glued so that you'll watch the commercials and buy the stuff. And to put you in the frame of mind that buying the stuff will make you happy. All right, now we want to teach our children how to be equipoised. So Krishna says in 259, the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste for sense objects remains, but ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. Param drisva nivartite. All right, so I'm going to teach all of you a very, very, very simple process. It's very simple, it works. You'll be very happy. It's something that you can and should please teach to your children. And this is called how to become free from all attachment and aversion. Is that funny? That's good. How to be equipoised. Now, it's true if you're totally absorbed in Krishna's name, form, quality, and pastimes, being equipoised happens naturally. That's a fact. But in practicing sadhana bhakti, part of our sadhana is learning how to keep our mind equipoised. When Krishna explains the fall-down sequence in Bhagavad Gita 262 to 263, he says you think about something, and you think about it, and then you get attached to it, and then you really want it, and then you get angry, and then your intelligence gets bewildered. And when our intelligence is bewildered, we're not happy, even if we have great shoes, great phone, great friends, great house, great food, great everything, right? We just demonstrated that, correct? Okay. So what does he say the cure is after that? Right after those verses, he gives the cure in 264, where he says, don't have attachment or aversion, regulate your senses, and then you'll get Krishna's mercy. He said you'll get the prasadam of the Lord. That doesn't mean a galabjaman, it means you'll get the grace of the Lord to overcome the mind. And when Arjuna said, Chanchalahi mana Krishna, the mind is very restless, it's always flickering, then Krishna says, yes, it's undoubtedly difficult to control the restless mind, but it's possible by suitable practice and detachment. So what is the practice and detachment so that one can become equipoised and not be affected by lust, anger, envy, greed, illusion, right? Krishna says that too. Trividam narakashyedam dwaram nasanamatmana. That one should give up this lust, anger, and greed. So many times when people think about becoming equipoised, we think about simply becoming adverse. We think, okay, I'm going to be equipoised. I'm not going to be angry. I'm not going to be sad. I'm not going to be grieving. I'm not going to be disappointed. I'm not going to be bitter. I'm not going to be lonely. What are some other negative emotions? Confused, depressed, hopeless, helpless, lost, discouraged. I'm not going to be those things. And when those feelings come into my body and mind, I'm going to kill them. Oh, there's anger. I am not going to be angry. I'm 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 not going to be lusty. I'm not going to be lusty. I'm not going to be lusty. Does that work? No, it doesn't work. In fact, what happens is the more you push against those things, the stronger they get. Have you noticed that? And eventually they kind of explode. Yes? So some people say, well, what you do is just express them then. Whenever you're angry, just yell at somebody, throw something. Whenever you're sad, just cry all day. And then you won't be repressing everything. So that's another philosophy. And then what we do in modern society is we just try to numb it. Yeah? So we find out that if we push it all down, it gets stronger and then it explodes and makes us physically ill also. And if you express it, you very quickly lose all of your friends and your family, correct? And you don't even like yourself so much anymore. So what are you going to do? So then people numb it. They drink alcohol, they take tobacco, they smoke marijuana, they watch TV and movies, they play video games, or they work really, 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 really hard, so they never have time to think about what they're feeling. So those are all escaping. Right? This is the main way that these are the three main ways that materialistic people deal with all of the disturbances in their mind. They try to deny them, to kill them, either unconsciously suppress them or consciously repress them. Or they try to express them, or they try to escape them. Do any of those work? No. So that's not the method. Okay, so if you're teaching your child to control his or her anger or sadness or whatever by repression, it actually even makes you physically ill. And eventually it all comes out. Right? And if you teach them to just express it, then they're going to be rather an obnoxious person or a lonely person. And if you teach them to just escape it, then they're going to get into something that's intoxicating. If not chemically intoxicating, then electronically intoxicating or busyness intoxicating. So what we want to do instead is train our children to be free from attachment and aversion. So how you do that, it's not really a very difficult thing at all. Krishna explains in the 5th chapter and the 13th chapter and some other place that I can never remember and I keep forgetting to look it up, that we are simply the observer. These emotions are not me. I am not this body. I am not this mind. These different disturbances are simply chemical reactions happening in the body that the mind then identifies with. That's all they are. That's it. The senses of the body are responding to certain stimuli in the world by having different chemical reactions in our body. The mind interprets those chemical reactions as a particular emotion and identifies with it to the point that we'll say, I am sad, as if that's our identity. Who are you? I'm sad. Hi, sad. I mean, even that kind of language. I am angry. I am sad. So a little better than that is I feel angry. But even better than that is, oh, there's anger in my mind. There's anger in my body. Because that's actually the truth. And it's not even that there's anger in your body. There's, oh, my heart's beating faster. That's interesting. And I'm sweating. And to just look at what's happening in the body as an observer. I had a very dramatic experience of this recently in Mayapur, that there was one young man who was, I'd seen him be in a drama, but I actually don't even know his name. Anyway, he was very, 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 very angry. And he was talking to one woman around my age and expressing how angry he was. So she was trying to calm him down, and so I went past and I tried to say some things. And then finally I said to him, imagine that your anger is just some creature that you're looking at. And within 2 seconds, he was completely calm. These things are not really us. It's like a show on a screen in a shop that sells TVs. You go into a store that sells television sets, sells monitors, and they always have something playing on the monitor so you can see the quality of the thing, right? Correct? So you walk past and on the monitor, somebody's getting married, and another monitor, somebody's shooting somebody. Does it affect you emotionally? No, because you're not identifying with it. If you were actually watching the show, you'd start to identify with it. And then you'd be all happy when the people got married, and you'd be all scared when somebody got shot. But when you're just walking past it, you have another business. You're there to buy some, apples or something. And you don't identify with it. Srila Prabhupada gave the example of a business person in an automobile. And there's a driver of the car, and the business person's sitting in the back seat while the driver is driving. And Prabhupada said the business person is aware that the car is stopped, or the car is turning left, or that the light is red. It's not that the person is not aware. But they're thinking of their own business. They're not identifying with the car. So you want to teach your children to be focused on thoughts of Krishna, and to simply observe the emotions and neither try to enjoy them nor kill them. So how many of you have been to Vrindavan, India? How many of you have been to Vrindavan, India? Okay. So in Vrindavan, India, there's a lot of rhesus monkeys, yeah? So a lot of you are laughing, but they're not always so funny, they can be very violent. And they're very mischievous. So if you ever stay in a place in Vrindavan, do you feed the monkeys at your place? What happens if you feed the monkeys at your place? They'll go to the top of your building you're staying in, and they'll play with the water tank. And they'll disconnect the water tank. You'll get a flood and you won't have any water. Please don't ask me how I know this. They'll play with your laundry. You'll hang up your nice, clean, wet clothes to dry. Don't ask me how I know this either. I didn't get out my phone fast enough to take a photograph. But the teenage monkeys, teenagers are problems in every species. The teenage monkeys had taken my clothes off the line, and they were trying to figure out how to put on a sari. I mean, they really were. They were all wrapped up in the thing, So that's why you don't feed the monkeys by your house. If you feed the monkeys by where you're staying, your nice clean clothes will have muddy paw prints on it. Yes? Yes?
So is this where monkey madness came from?
Probably. But do you kill the monkeys? Do you injure them? No. So you neither feed them nor do you injure them. You leave them alone. They're Krishna's monkeys. Actually, you shouldn't even really stare at them. They'll take that as aggressive behavior and they may attack you. So you leave them alone. You don't hurt them and you don't feed them. So all of the desires, materialistic thoughts, emotions that go through our body and mind are just like these Vrindavan monkeys. If you feed them, they will get muddy paw prints all over your nice, clean, wet laundry. They'll break your water tank and flood your house. They'll shake the bars on your windows. That's what happens if you feed them. And if you hurt them, Krishna will be angry, isn't it? And the other monkeys might be angry too and might come back and attack you. So with our emotions and our thoughts, don't feed them and don't kill them. Let them be. If you leave the monkeys alone, they'll find someplace else to go. They will. They won't hang around. They'll move on. They're nomadic. So our emotions and our materialistic emotions and thoughts and desires are all nomads. They won't stay. Just leave them alone. Focus on something higher and observe them. Now, this should happen to a large extent automatically if we're chanting Hare Krishna with attention. When we chant japa and kirtan with attention and love, this ability to realize ourselves as the observer becomes more and more and more pronounced. But it is also something that Krishna recommends that we do intentionally as part of our devotional practice. And if you can teach this to your children, they will be very benefited for their entire life. Now, ultimately, we should practice detachment and practice connection with the divine because we want to have love, not so we can just be happy in this world and so we can be peaceful and so we can be undisturbed. So we also want to train our children that the best way to happiness is love, even from a material point of view. People are much happier if they have someone to love and they are loved than if they don't have any love in their life and they have everything else. Yes? There's volumes of research to this effect. And so the ultimate lovable person is Krishna. And certainly we should teach them to love Krishna. And this should be teaching that we're doing on a regular basis, every day. Have some time of regular connection with the Lord. Practice equilibrium toward the material thoughts and emotions, and work at developing love for Krishna. So the next point we're going to look at is holistic education. So, of course, one of the main tenets of our Krishna consciousness movement is, you're not that body. You're not that body, you're not that mind. It's one of the most basic principles of spiritual life. Right? Now, jayate miyate va chidnayam bhutva bhavitava navuyaha ajo nachasasvachoyam purano nahanyate hanyamaneshwari, right? So we talk a lot about holistic education. And holistic education means certainly you want to educate children mentally, intellectually, emotionally. They should know how to, do mathematics, and they should know something about history and something about geography and something about biology, and they should know how to read and how to write and all that kind of stuff. They should know how to have good relationships in this world, social education. They should get physical education. They should have exercise and sports and be fit and healthy. But we also have to take care of the soul. Now, one thing that I see particularly, I think the majority of people here are originally from India, yeah? Yes? How many of you were born in India? Okay. About 2/3 of you. So, I hope this is okay, but what I see is that people who are born in third world countries tend to have a lot of anxiety about the material side of life. Those of us who are born in first world countries don't generally have that much anxiety. We don't worry so much about, am I going to get a good job? Am I going to get food to eat? Am I going to have a place to live? We just don't generally. I mean, unless we grew up in a slum in a first world country. But when you grow up in third world countries, there tends to be kind of this overarching anxiety. My kid has got to get into the best school and into the most high status, most high earning career. And that is the focus of my kid's life all the time. You're in Australia, you can breathe. Just breathe. It's okay. That's what you came here for, I assume, yeah? You came here so you could relax about the material side of life. Isn't that why you came here? So do it. Don't bring this intense anxiety with you here. You don't need it here. You can literally breathe here. I have a thing on my phone that tells me air quality. You know, I was in Malaysia, and before that I was in India for like 5 months, and every day I would get a notice, terrible air quality. Go inside, turn on the AC. I come to Australia, wonderful air quality, go outside and breathe. But not only do you literally have good air quality, you have a society where living materially a comfortable life does not require going to the best school and having the most prestigious, high-paying jobs. Am I correct? You don't have to be the top of 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 the top to have a comfortable life here. Yes? So like, you can take the pressure off your kids. You really can take the pressure off your kids. Okay? You can take the pressure off yourself. You can take the pressure off your kids. They will most likely eat just fine and have a very comfortable house and a nice car and a nice job without pushing them so hard. And you can actually have time for spiritual life. Wow. Isn't that what you're doing here in this room? So please, with your children, make sure they have time for spiritual life. Make sure they have time for spiritual life. Put as much emphasis and as much energy and as much enthusiasm into their spiritual life. Because material life ultimately is not very important, relatively speaking. I'm not saying they shouldn't get educated. I mean, I have a PhD. I'm not saying they shouldn't get educated. I'm not saying they shouldn't be physically healthy. I'm not saying they shouldn't learn. But that shouldn't be everything. So the Bhagavad Gita is telling, Krishna tells Arjuna, fight expertly. He's not telling Arjuna, you know, you don't have to earn a living. In fact, when Arjuna says that, he says, oh, you know, my career's too hard, let me just give it up. And Krishna's like, okay, you want to do that? Go to the forest, sit on deerskin, you know, look at your nose. And Arjuna says, that's too hard, I can't do that. He says, well, okay, then get up and fight. So Krishna's not encouraging that we negate the material side of life or negate being expert in our life, which is what we're going to get to in about a minute. But he is emphasizing the spiritual. So please, those of you who were born and raised in India, those of us in the West are going to you for spiritual knowledge. Use it. It's ridiculous that I, a New Yorker, am educating Indians about spiritual life. That's completely ridiculous. It's yours. So now you have the best of both worlds. You're in a developed Western country. You've got it. You made it. Develop the spiritual richness of your tradition. And those of you who were born in India, you know, it's already there. For me, I have to work at it. You know, for you, it's there. It's there for you to access. Give that to your children. Make it an important part of your life, not something you rush through. Okay, offer your obeisances, light the lamp, go to school. Yeah, I've seen this. I've stayed in devotees' houses where it's like, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. Get ready, come on, do you have your homework? Do you have your bag? Do you have to... Okay, offer your obeisances to the deities. Okay, good. Yes, pronouns. Get in the school bus, hurry up. Oh my God. Phew. I'm stressed. It's only 6 o'clock in the morning. You know? Have some real quality time for spiritual life with your children. All right, now, finally, what I really think is one of the most important things we can talk about. And I really think that this is one of the main keys to enthusing our teenagers and our young adults in Krishna consciousness. And I speak about this to some extent when I talk about the 4 keys for Krishna conscious education, which I've taught here before, and decided not to teach tonight. Decided to teach this one instead. And this is engaging our children according to their natural tendencies. Discovering what our children's natural tendencies are, nurturing those, training the child in those, connecting the child's natural tendencies with their source of livelihood, and connecting the child's natural tendencies with the specific service that they do for Lord Chaitanya's mission. So Krishna makes this point very strongly in the Bhagavad Gita. In Bhagavad Gita 3:33, he said, even a person of knowledge acts according to his or her own nature. For everyone follows the nature acquired from the three modes. What can repression accomplish? And then he repeats this in the 18th chapter at the end of Bhagavad Gita, 18:45 to 47. So anytime a teacher repeats something, it's important. And anytime a teacher uses something in a summary, it's important. So he says, by following one's qualities of work, every person can become perfect. By worship of the Lord, who's the source of all beings and is all-pervading, a person can attain perfection through performing one's own work. It is better to engage in one's own occupation, even though one may perform it imperfectly, than to accept another's occupation and perform it perfectly. Duties prescribed according to one's own nature are never affected by sinful reactions. So Krishna makes this point very clearly, and he says to Arjuna, you have a choice. You can act according to your nature under my direction and be happy, or you can act according to your nature under the direction of illusion and be vanquished. My dear friends, those are our only two choices. We have a particular nature. We can use it for Krishna in a proper way and we'll be happy. We can use it in illusion in an improper way and be unhappy, and that's it. The nature Krishna's talking about is not something that can ordinarily be changed in this lifetime. Just like we each have a certain bodily configuration. Now, you could go to a surgeon with a knife and try to change it. That's very violent, isn't it? A very violent means of trying to change your nature. And you're not really changing it. You know, if you have a huge nose and you go to a surgeon to make your nose smaller, your children will still be born with large noses. You know, or if you dye your hair. You know, when my hair started growing gray, I thought about dyeing it, and I hope I'm not offending anybody. But I would see people with gray hair who had dyed their hair and the gray was coming in, and I'm like, no, not doing that. I thought better just accept it from day one, you know. I mean, it always looks fake, right? And the real roots end up showing anyway. So that's just our physical nature, but it's the same with our psychological nature. It is what it is, what it is, what it is, what it is. The question is how you use it. The question is what you do with it.